Hey guys, Vinny, back Car 5 Vanguard deck profiles. Hope you guys enjoyed them. Like, comment, subscribe, and subscribe. This time we're covering DZ set 4 for Lyrical Monasterio, and that is Krysrain. So I'm pretty much doing a Faded 1 deck profile for every Faded 1 deck that isn't Velstro or Rezael, or Leo. And the reason why I'm not doing one for each of those is because Leo didn't get support outside of the generic Divine Skill support. Rezael did get support, but I don't like its support, and I'm not willing to ditch anything in my deck for them, no matter how good they may be. And as for Velstro, it did get one card of support, which is really good, and I did put it in. But literally, none of the cards changed except for that one card. And I mean, yeah, numbers changed, that changed how the deck plays, but I'm not willing to do a deck profile on that, especially because it's really tedious. So going into start, shall we, with Krysrain, which actually did change a decent amount with a lot of good support cards. And while I won't say Krysrain feels good, it still feels better. I just wish it had more of like an aggressive finisher type of deal. But let's go into start, shall we, and see what we got. First today we have our energy generator. It's our ride deck crest. You move ride deck crest in your ride deck. Auto ride deck. When you drive, please card to your crest zone. If you want second energy charge 3, continues to 10 energy and auto begin your ride phase. Energy charge 3. Then after once per turn, energy boss 7, draw a card. All around pretty solid. You get a 3 for energy every turn. If you want second, you get an extra 3 energy on top of that. And not to mention the fact that once per turn you can draw a card if you have the 7 energy. And with literally the main Vanguard being able to energy charge you 3 every turn, and if you watch the Destined 1s versus Faded 1 matches, I mean, technically speaking, this goes up before that match with Krysrain, but pretty much in those matches, you kind of see how energy is important, at least in that Krysrain match. In some situations where you don't have any of your energy blasters, you can just afford to use the energy blast 7 every time you get the chance just to help increase your hand, because Krysrain always gives you free 3 energy. All around, energy generator is a nice card to have, and it is required for some of our skills, so obviously we run this in our ride deck. And of course, we move on to our actual units. First, we run Runder, Lavender, Urasol, so grade 2, 0 boost, 5k shield, 6k base, focus on the grade 0 part, not the grade 2 part. Auto road point, I can draw a card, standard start, best eventually draw if you go second. You're going to make this any star you want. None of the ride line really requires this. I just to make a Urasol because it came out in the DZ set start decks, and as you know, those start decks had the same triggers and starters that were canonically supposed to go to their respective Faded ones, so yeah, Urasol's here for that reason. Then move on to our triggers. We're going to overtrigger Mysterious Twins, Romeo and Rumia, grades 0 boost, 50k shield, 5k power, overtrigger in your deck, and as you remove that card, draw a card, choose one moods, it gets +1 for the turn. If it during your check activate, it's a disfet, what you get during this fight, you get during turn, all your rear guards get +1 as a power. Okay, depending on if you go first or second, this deck will either get a full board on turn 1 or get a full board on turn 2. Either way, if you sack this card early enough, like I did in one of those games, spoiler alert by the way, this card will pretty much instant win you the game because you will constantly be hitting your opponent with 30k columns going into grade 3. All around, Romeo and Rumia is a very solid overtrigger to have for number pressure. Obviously, drive checking this is better than damage checking this, but either or is nice as well. You can run Vulnerable for consistent multi-attacking. You could run, what's it called? What's the other trigger called? I'm blanking so hard right now. Frick, why am I blanking on his name? You could run Sporio for recycling, you could run the Dark Overtrigger for healing and calling, but I choose to make it Romeo and Romeo because it is the Nation Overtrigger, and also because it has more numbers, and it fits Krysrain's theme. There are a lot of Lyrical Monasterio Overtriggers with the same skill as it, so you can go run any of those. I choose to make it Romeo and Romeo because, again, it follows Krysrain's theme. Then move on to our normal triggers. We're throwing 3 copies of our critical trigger, Cheerful Sunshine Wallace, grade 0 boost, and Kiss 5k base. You're going to make this any crit you want. I choose to make it Wallace because, again, like the starters in the DZ set start deck, and again, canonically, Krysrain's trigger. Then we run 4 more crits on top of that, Precious Tune Everett, so total 7 crits. Again, these 3 can be whatever you want. I do suggest you run Edwards as a 4 of though. Grade 0 boost, 15k shield, 4k power, critical trigger, auto rear guard. At the end of she boosts your Shepherd of Soul, choose range 2k for the turn. I suggest you run this in your deck because if you play this deck like me and you want to get a full board out consistently every turn, you're probably going to run into a soul problem at some point or another. That's what Edwards is for. So being able to help increase your soul, worst case scenario, if you're spamming the 2 soul blasts in this deck 24/7, is nice to have, even if that 2k never makes a difference. But who knows, maybe on some situations it will, because you know Krysrain's skill to make someone's power her own, which could actually make the difference in terms of your opponent being able to guard. So 7 crits for pressure, and then obviously we have Overtrigger for the 10k. We have 4 draw triggers, which is Paris Snowy Knight Bear Toy, grade 0 boost, 5k shield, 4k base. Draw triggers cards, local opponent Vanguard's grade 3 guard, plus 5,000 shields, 10k shield, nice to have. It's a draw triggers helps increase the hand, and since again this deck wants to pull out boards 24/7, being able to refill your hand, especially against your opponent's rear guards who retire your stuff, is great as well. You can make this a front trigger, but I just feel like considering the Divine Skill is supposed to be the kill turn, even though it literally never is the kill turn, it's still preferred to have the draw trigger since the front trigger won't really go off anyways. So 4 Bear Toy for that pressure, and then we have 4 Talkative Hour Time moves, grades 0 boost, 50k shield, 5k base, standing heal, nuts battle, you can links on here you want. Again, just like Wallace over here in the starter, it was in the DZ start deck, therefore it's here. You can make the counter heal if you want to, but I prefer the consistent 15k shield over the fluctuating 10-25k shield. But again, you do you. Either way, I'm going to run Tasmans as 4. I'll move on to our grade 1s. First up, we run 4 PGs, all of which are at 1-ofs because worst case scenario, you pull off Krysrain's effect. You want to have as many different names as possible. You see, what I don't believe is that these are 4 1-ofs, right? I somehow will see all 4 of these throughout the entirety of the game, and yet there will sometimes be units in here that are at 4 copies, such as Persona Rides. It's happened one game, where I just won't see them. Does it make sense? No. I don't understand it either, but that's just how it works. I will literally open with 2 PGs in my hand most of the time. I think it happened in that game. Anyways, they all share the same skill. Continue set to one before side to the deck. I'll just put a guard circle. Choose one mutes. It cannot be hit to the bottom. If your hands stream cards in it. Choose a card from hands, guard, standard PG. Nothing to specify. Basically means this one card in hand placed on guard circle. You know how to great, because that means you can be as aggressive in the early game, spam the ever-living hell out of any grade 1 that isn't a PG, and on your divine skill turn, spam your PGs, and when your opponent eventually counterattacks you, give them the middle finger, you throw down the PG. You can make these any PGs you want. I just choose to make it these ones because they'll have a story behind them. Diva of Refreshing Calm Krysrain, she's here, well, because she was the original Lyrical Monasterio PG with the special effects skill. Also, she fits Krysrain's name of being a mermaid. You know, Ravenia's here because she's pretty much the PG. Wait, no, Nicoline's here because she's the PG. I shoved in literally every Lyrical Monasterio deck, so I might as well shove her in here. Ravenia's in here because she was my favorite of the Lyrical Monasterio PGs outside of Krysrain. And then Warmia is here because she is the PG that was released in DZ Set 1 alongside Krysrain, so she gets here by proxy. So 4 of different PGs. Again, you can run these all at 4 of, but I'm going to tell you this right now, if you think it's inconsistent running a bunch of 1 of PGs, it's not. I have consistently opened with 2 PGs in my opening hand post-mulligan, so yeah, you're going to drop PGs pretty easily. And moving on to our grade 1s that are not 1-ofs, 2 copies of Monasterio Iveta, grade 1 boost, 5 Kashod, aka base, friend, continues rearguard circle. If you have another same call master, that and this unit both become friends, and then continues rearguard if you have another friend on your board, she gets 2000 power. Okay, 10k booster or 10k just front row unit in general, it's 2k during both players' turns, so it's a 10k regardless of the time span. All around, she's not amazing, but in very specific situations, like early game rush, where you just need to boost a Krysrain for some reason, or you're just trying to beat down your opponent with whatever you've got, Iveta honestly can be helpful. I forgot what game it was, but it was like right before I upgraded this deck with the stuff from set 4, and Iveta was hard carrying the game because I called her in the early game. She rushed down my opponent. My opponent didn't kill her because she was at best going to be a 10k booster throughout the entirety of the game, and there are other rear guards that were important to kill, such as, I don't know, Anna's and Frezette over here, and then eventually Iveta just ended up winning me the game because she was a 10k booster, and that extra 2k actually made the difference between a 5k guard in the end game and a no 5k guard in the end game. So yeah, do Iveta. If you let her live long enough, she will actually be the death of you, so cool for her. Then we have 3 copies of straight up this deck's Ace grade 1, Munchkin Girl Sia, grade 1 boost, 5k shield, it's a 3k base. I loved seeing not Mika, I forgot what her name was, but Miko, I think, the girl who uses Krysrain in the anime. I loved seeing her use Sia. I don't like her very much, if you can't tell, so seeing her use Sia made me care just a little bit much about her. Anyways, on and place from rearguard circle from either hand, deck, whatever, main phase, battle phase, doesn't matter. Soul boss, want to check the top card, call to an open rearguard circle, or put it to your hand. If you put a card to your hand, just card from discard it. Okay, cool. So either get a free rearguard or get a hand card. Okay, let me make this clear now. Unless you've already used your divine skill, and even then it's a 50-50, or you see a trigger, you're going to call that card to rearguard circle. And the reason why I specified divine skill is if you saw a PG. Like, if you've already used your divine skill, maybe you don't call it to rearguard circle. It depends on the situation. But most of the times, especially if you haven't used the divine skill, use this anyways because the divine skill is going to bounce whatever you reveal back to your hand. So honestly, she's pretty good. She helps you get board presence during your divine skill turn when you superior call her via the Vanguard's effect. She can get your rearguard. She can combo off Anus, who could possibly call Sia during the divine skill turn. And then Sia can call you another rearguard. So all around you get consistent multi-attack. Her 3k isn't a problem because again, you're supposed to bump her up with Krysrain's skill, and even then in the early game where she's just making you a board, well, she's either a booster for the Vanguard that makes the Vanguard 13k into an 8k Vanguard, or it goes behind something that already going to hit good numbers anyway. So 3 of Sia, she's a very nice grade 1 to have. She doesn't look that good, but honestly, she has carried me through a lot of games, and ever since her release has been really good for combo extending, so 3 for her. Then we have 3 copies of A Ballad of My Own Someday Siska, grade 1 boost, 5k shield, 8k base, all in one placed on rearguard circle. If you do not have another rearguard then card name as her, perform with the following. If you have 4 or more units, counter boss 1, draw a card. Energy boss 3, she gets 10,000 power for the turn. Okay, so you either get a free hand card, which can be helpful in trying to get multiple different card names on board for Krysrain's skill, though at this point, if you have 4 or more units, you probably do have, you know, the ability to use her skill fully. Or your Energy Blast 3 to make her an 18k, again, taking advantage of Krysrain's ability. Though technically speaking, that doesn't involve you needing a full board for that, and you can play that on grade 1 turn. All around, Siska is a nice grade 1 to have. She can get numbers as you get hand cards. The only downside is once another copy of her hits the board, automatically you can't use another one. And again, spoiler for that game, that does happen where essentially one of them just acts as a vanilla, which kind of sucks and ultimately makes the difference if Krysrain wins or loses. So 3 of Siska, she's a very good grade 1 when you're just playing her as the only one on the board. But once you have to just start calling duplicates, she is probably the worst duplicate you can get because at least everyone else can do something, especially Sia. She, on the other hand, can't. So 3 of Siska, she can increase hand and get numbers, but that's pretty much, you don't want to put more than one of her on the board at a time. Then we have 4 copies of Cynical Composer Rom, Great on Boost, 5k short, 8k base. Literally the definition of in set 1, I did not use her at all. Set 2, I used her a decent amount. Set 3, when I didn't even upgrade Krysrain, I just used her more. And then in set 4, I understood Rom's presence. Anyways, continues rear guard during the battle. She boosts every Vanguard's a Krysrain, add 5,000 power to it, so 13k booster, which is nice to have. And then auto rear guard when she boosted grade 3 Greater Vanguard with Krysrain the card name. If you have 4 or more units with different card names, including herself and the Vanguard Circle, so you have at least 2 right there. You literally have any 2 other different units and you're good to go. Energy Blast 3 until end of the battle. When your opponent would call cards without Sentinel from their hand to guard circle, them is called 3 or more at the same time with different grades. So either they PG the Vanguard that has a double crit on it, they take the Vanguard that has a double crit on it, or they use at least 3 cards to guard, all of which have to have different grades. So Rom is pretty solid as a grade 1. She's a 13k booster, so at least on turns where you're not trying to go for a game, she's at least boosting your numbers to decent value to where your opponent probably has to drop a 15k on an attack. But also in the sense of where she boosts the Vanguard, well, it's PG, take, or drop most of your hand. All around, Rom is a very solid grade 1 to have. I do like her a lot. She punches player for not having PGs, and she allows for the deck to do an early aggro rush if you time it right, and the best part is she doesn't have to boost a Vanguard going into a grade 3. Your Vanguard has to be a grade 3, so she's an easy 4 for us, and if you think you see her often enough, well, I've only bricked with her once, as in I've only had her appear on the board twice at the same time, so yeah, Rom's not really a bad grade 1 in this case to have it for. Then we have 4 copies of Moderate Mint Rochelle. Okay, I don't understand how Rochelle does it, but like the turns I want to Divine Skill, she won't, except for one game, she won't show up, which is good because I don't want to have to debate between Divine Skilling and using her ability. And then at the same time, the turns where I know I'm not going to Divine Skill, she will show up, and it will only be 1 copy at a time, so I know I don't have to worry about, you know, calling multiple copies and not being able to use skills. Anyways, Rochelle, Great on Boost, 5k shield, 8k base. I do love like the Rising Sun, I think, or the Setting Sun in the background. Either way, it's really cool, and the contrast of arts here. Auto Rear Guard when your grade 3 Greater Vanguard Krysrain is card name attacks. Energy Blast 3, Shover to Soul, draw a card. Okay, weird to Energy Blast 3, but it gets you a soul card and it gets you a draw, so hey, see ya spam 24/7. And then your Rear Guard did not stand by a card's ability this turn. Doesn't matter whose ability it was, as long as it didn't stand by an ability that turn. Choose one of your Rear Guard chosen by the ability of your grade 3 Greater Vanguard Krysrain and card name and stand it. Okay, all around pretty solid. You know, Krysrain can give the 15k from her ability to anyone. Typically, you're going to want to pick Francis, so at least the Vanguard gets something else in return. You get an extra Rear Guard attack out of it, which is pretty solid, so you're still getting a double crit Vanguard while also still getting pressure from the Rear Guard attacks as well. Rochelle all around works as a very solid grade 1. I do like her a lot, and again, she has consistently shown up when I need her to, so I don't have to debate between moves I want to make and moves I should make. So 4 of Rochelle all around very solid. Get soul, only cost your energy to use, get your hand cards worst case scenario in case you really need them, and you get your rear guard restand for just picking a unit other than Krysrain for the 15k, so 4 of her. And then we have last grade 1 in the deck, one of in the red deck, none in the main deck, of Lively Navy Tiffany. So I have come to realize that the ride line in this deck will never work out for me, so I've just chosen to accept that and then take advantage of it, which honestly has been working. Anyways, Great on Boost, 5k shield, 8k base, auto roll pound by Confident Aqua Musette, reveal the top card of your deck, call it to rear guard circle as a grade chosen normal unit, and put it to your hand if it's not. Okay, AK, unless it's a grade 3, unless it's a Krysrain in this deck specifically, or it's a trigger, it goes to board. Now if you're me, it is reveal the top card, add it to your hand, because every single time I use this effect, I will flip a trigger. It's always a trigger, it just doesn't matter which one, because it's going to go to my hand either way. And the same thing goes for Musette. I don't understand why it's like that, but I've started to accept it, and honestly, it works out, just accepting the fact that I have a free 15k hand that I can use to guard on my next turn. Auron Tiffany is a very solid grade 1 to have. You can use other ride lines that are consistent, the Assessors line, literally any other Lyrical Monasterio line that involves bouncing or Superior Calling, but Tiffany is fine as it is. I mean, it's a free rear guard if you do end up flipping off a normal unit. The preferred hope is you flip Sia into literally any of these, but is what is if you get a trigger and you get guard power out of it. So one of Tiffany in the ride deck, none in the main deck. We'll move on to our grade 2s. 2 copies of Innocent Orange. And as you see, my main worry about running her at 2 is I didn't think I would see her as often as I do. And I see her just as consistently as I used to, so I don't really see the problem of running her at 2 now. Anyways, Geared as a 5k shield, 10k base. Honestly, pistol on rear guard circle. Your Vanguard's a grade 3 grade Krysrain. CB1 and Energy Blast 3. Check the top 5 to 1 unit card from among them with a different card name from the unit cards on your Vanguard circle and rear guard circles. Comes to rear guard circle and shuffle the deck. All around pretty solid. It gets you 1 free rear guard. Again, hopefully you're able to flip a Sia who can flip over anyone else and get you more rear guards. But nice that she can make board presence, and again on Divine Skill turns that's really great as well because she can lead to more multi-attack combos. The only downside is she costs a CB and energy, and granted the energy isn't something that Krysrain costs, it is something someone else very important to your deck costs, so you want to be careful about that. But she also costs CB, and your deck does have a lot of good CBers, Krysrain being one of them, so always be a little bit careful with Anna's, and that's actually why she's at 2 because she was conflicting costs with everyone else. And then auto rear guard when she attacks into a grade 3 or guard unit, whether it's Vanguard or rear guard. If you have 4 or more different units with different card names, including herself and the Vanguard, so at least 2, this unit gets 10 to the power for that battle. All around pretty solid, so she's a 20k swing. If she swings to a grade 3 unit, she works on grade 2 as well, so if you manage to have those 4 more different names and your opponent somehow got a grade 3 on the board, you can use Anna's with that. All around, she's a very solid grade 2 to have, but again, she has conflicting costs, so I always want to be careful when using her, so I like to have her as a 2 of in this deck. Then we have 3 copies of What Color is Your Wish Valspun, aka the thing that can put us into a soul boss problem if you're not careful, because I guarantee you will be spamming CA 24/7 if you're anything like me. Anyways, Valspun, great 2 and set 5k shield, 10k base, auto discard from your hand during your rat phase, soul boss 1 bot decker, draw a card, and then auto root and placed on rear guard circle. If you persona of this turn, CB1 and choose one of your vanguards, and it gets to choose vanguard, all your front rear guards get choose that, get not front rear guards. All your front units get 5,000 power for that turn. All around pretty solid, being able to soul boss 1 bot decker and get you hand cards is nice. It recycles your units, it gets you more hand cards, a little bit more aggro. If you're me, it just means you draw triggers again. Yes, I will literally ditch this to ride from this into this, flip a trigger from her skill, and then get another trigger from Valspun. I don't understand. I don't know why this happens, but it is. But like by the time either side gets to grade 3, I'll probably have lost either at least over a fourth of my triggers or almost half of my triggers, if not half of my triggers. But also in the sense of being able to get 5k to the front row on the Persona turns is great because it makes Krysrain a little bit more lethal. You know, you have all these units that get extra 10k from the Persona along the extra 5k from the Valspun skill. Maybe if you're not divine skilling, you can maybe Rochelle to get more restands for multi-attack and abuse of that 5k. Either way, Valspun is a nice grade 2 to have for consistency's sake, and I like to have her as a 3 of. Then we have 3 copies of Loving Pink Francette, grade 2 and 5k shield, 10k base, auto rear guard when this unit is chosen by the effect of your grade 3 or greater vanguard with Krysrain in its card name. Choose a vanguard to give 10,000 power for the turn. All around pretty solid because essentially you now have a target to give Krysrain's 15k to other than herself. So she's a 25k booster, or not 25k booster, 25k swinger, and at least the vanguard still getting something out of it. So the vanguard doesn't get the extra 15, but it gets an extra 10, so it's only losing 5k out of this exchange, so it's still 23k, which is pretty solid. Not to mention the fact that this is now triggering setup with Rochelle, who can now restand her. And the other important part is her other ability where auto rear guard when she attacks into anything. If you have 3 more units with different card names, including herself and the vanguard, so that's at least 2. All you need is 1 more. Ahem, Rochelle, and ahem, Sia over here. When she swings at anything, you get 5k for that turn. And then if you have 4 more different units with different card names, again, all the 4 I just named, at the end of your battle, choose one of the rear guards, bounce it. All around, pretty solid. It's able to bounce one of your rear guards to hand. It's not a mandatory bounce, so if you want to keep it on board for whatever reason, you can. But you can return it to the hand, maybe loop it for next turn. You know, your Sias are pretty nice. Or if you have to aggro a PG call, you can bounce one of your PGs back to hand. Not to mention the fact that she's a 20k swing, assuming you gave her Krysrain's effect. And being able to get that 5k, not just for the battle, but for the turn, means that if you do end up restanding her via Rochelle and you manage to keep the different card names on board, you can give her another 5k for that battle, means she has a total of 35k for that second swing. All around, Francette is a very nice grade 2 to have. Her skill is absolutely free. She benefits from being called by Krysrain, and she gets supported by Krysrain's new card as well, who also supports Krysrain herself. So 3 of Francette, you would think to make it a 4 of, but again, kind of like Anna's, you would think you don't see this often with it being at 3 copies. You see it often enough to where you would assume it's a 4 of. Hell, I think it's a 4 half the time. And we have 3 copies of Ringing Song Fiora. Grade 2 and 5k shield, 10k base, auto rear guard when this unit attacks on anything. If your vanguards are grade 3 or greater Krysrain, choose 4 of your units. If you chose 4 units, all your units and all of them had different card names, she gets 10,000 power for that turn. Okay, all around pretty solid. She picks herself, she picks the vanguard, literally pick 200 of the units, she's automatically a 20k swing. Again, she works for the turn. You want to benefit her by adding Krysrain's power to her. You know, preferably you give it to Francette, but if you have to give it to someone else, at least give it to Fiora. So Fiora is swinging for 35k her first battle, and then you know you well, technically 43 because you're probably boosting her with Rochelle, and then Rochelle goes to soul when your vanguard attacks for the double crit, and then she restands, and then she's swinging for 45k during that second battle. All around, Fiora is a very nice grade 2 to have. She is good numbers for beat sticks. She is absolutely free to use. The only downside is, unlike Francette, she doesn't support the vanguard for being chosen by the effect, but it is what it is. At least she gets really good numbers out of it, so she's a nice 3 of in my book. Then we have our last grade 1 in the deck, or not grade 1, grade 2 in the deck. One of in the red deck, none in the main deck of Confident, Aqua, Musette. Grade 2 and 5k shield, 10k base, auto rolled upon by a grade 3 card Krysrain in the card name. Reveal the top card of your deck, call it to rear guard surface as a grade 3 lazy norm unit. Put your hand up as not. Okay, what I always hated about this one specifically isn't because almost an exact copy and paste of the grade 1, but because this thing has the audacity to straight up tell you, unless it's a trigger, it goes to board. Or unless it's a trigger in order, it goes to board. And the reason why I specify that is because unlike Tiffin, who at least gave you the chance to add a Persona right to hand if you did end up flipping a Persona right off, Musette just straight up tells you call a grade 3, which means if you do flip a Persona right off this, even in builds that have other grade 3s, you're going to be forced to call that Persona right if that's what you flipped, and then you're not going to be able to get that back to hand outside of Krysrain's bounce ability or Francette or whatever else you're running with the bounce capabilities. Basically what I'm saying is this: I don't like Musette at all, but again, most of the time, if not most, I mean all the time, she flips me a trigger, and at this point you just get used to the point where, like I said earlier, you at least have guardian power going to the next turn, though I'd rather not end up with half of my triggers in my hand before before either of us start swinging with our grade 3s. But you know what? Is what is. So one of them moves in the Riot deck, none in the main deck. Moving on to our last card in the deck, 3 of them in the main deck, 1 of them in the Riot deck, a faded one of ever-changing Krysrain. I gotta say, I originally hated Krysrain going into, like, set 1 for DZ. Then set 2, you know, for set made me like her a little more. Then set 4, I don't like her simply because her matches feel like they take forever. Like, I straight up will tell you, every game that I record with her will genuinely be the longest matches ever because Krysrain will not kill on Divine Skill turn, but she is physically unkillable on the next turn unless the opponent breaks through, like, 2 to 3 PGs. And then on top of that, she will maybe sometimes survive for another turn after that. So it's kind of annoying, and that's why I kind of don't like Krysrain a lot, but I do like her artwork, I do like her skills, and I do think the deck is fun to play up until that point. I think it's fun to play just in practice. I don't like playing it on recording. But I do love editing her matches, though. I just don't like recording them. Anyways, faded one of ever-changing Krysrain, that antidote aside. Grade 3, 10%, 13k base. Active Vanguard Circle once per turn, CD1, perform one of the following. If you have 4 or more, use different card names, that's including herself. Perform 2 instead of 1. If you have 5 or more, perform all instead of 1. I have not had to perform 2 in the longest time. Again, spoiler for that match, and this is the last spoiler for that match. That was the first time, either in general or in a long time, aka since Krysrain's release, that I've had to actually pick which skill not to use, because most of the time you get 5 more different names on board, because it counts herself, and you're most likely going to have 4 free rear guards of different names. Anyways, draw a card, energy charge 3, choose over yours, give it 15k for the turn, she gets a crit for the turn. So pretty solid. Again, most of the time you're getting all of the abilities, but on occasions, depending on the situation, maybe you want to draw a card and energy charge 3, because maybe like you want to energy blast 7, get a draw, maybe you get more rear guards out the board. Maybe you want to give someone 15k to add pressure. Maybe you just want to get a crit for it. Either way, all around, Krysrain's main ability is good with its versatility and the fact that a lot of things can go off at once. It's not incredibly broken, but it does help you set up a lot, especially if you're picking Francette, comboing it with Rochelle, or even just a Fiora over here, even if you're not getting extra power to the Vanguard Circle. And then the Divine Skill, arguably one of the worst Divine Skills of them all. Auto Vanguard, at the end of this unit, attack to grade 3 grade unit, return all your rear guards to the hand, to 1 unit card from among them, call it the rear guard circle to end of turn, increase or decrease that unit's power and critical to match this unit's, and you may only use Divine Skill a total of once per fight among all your cards. Okay, it's pretty solid, do not get me wrong. It gets you an extra rear guard, it gets you an extra attack, and I mean, you know, you combine this with Anna's or Sia over here, you probably get an extra attack on top of that, but only one's going to have that extra crit pressure. The reason why I don't like this Divine Skill is because, like I said, most of the time I lose all of my triggers early on. In fact, up until set 4, I have not seen drive check triggers in my Divine Skill. I see them like once every 5 matches. Meaning, my Vanguard, if I did get a Persona right off, thankfully, at most, would be a 43k column. I think 43k is still being generous, but 43k column with double critical. And the other unit, and most of the time my opponent would have pulled a damage trigger at that point, meaning they only have to guard with 2 15ks and they're good to go. Like, don't get me wrong, the Divine Skill is fine for what it is. It just, the fact that this is their biggest finisher move, and you only get to do it once per game, and typically, at least with this deck, the opponent will survive past it to the point where you have to kind of just rely on beat sticking your opponent down with that ability, is iffy. But either way, though, it does make the deck at least interesting. Like, you get 1 burst turn, and if you do set it up properly, you can definitely beat your opponent down with it. And again, this at least has the consistency and a cheap cost to manage it well with, since she is really the only card with CB cost in the deck outside of Anna's, Valspun, and, you know, Sika. And if you're like me, where half the time you're not saying Persona Ride, you don't have to worry about this. And if you're not spamming Anna's 24/7, the only thing you really have to worry about is Siska. And honestly, you're probably using the Energy Blast 3 skill more than using the Draw skill. Either way, though, Krysrain is a very solid grade 3 to have. You know, every turn she's getting you free energy charge 3 on top of your inherent energy charge 3 from the Riot deck crest. She's getting a free 15k in her crit, or she's giving that 15k to someone else so they can restand. And I mentioned that on the Divine Skill turn, well, you at least got pressure for that. So without further ado, I'm going to this one here. I hope you all enjoy. Again, I like playing the deck, I just don't like recording it because it does take forever, but I do like editing it because I don't know why. For some reason, editing Krysrain is a really fun video to edit. I literally don't understand why. I hate recording it like with every fiber of my being, but when I edit it, I will literally have a smile on my face, and I don't understand why. Either way, though, that's it for this one. I hope you all enjoy. This is not the final deck profile for DZ Set 4. We still got 2 more after this, but I'll see you all on those ones. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and Twitch, and don't forget to set up your Vanguards.